Check, check. Gonna try this a few times. Maybe go about 45 minutes at a time. I had a conversation with the most recent attorney who's supposed to be representing me in a case to get parental rights, something as a male I had to sue to obtain. And by sue, I mean file a court document requesting relief from damages, so to speak, if one would. I had to sue the state of Florida and apparently the other party responsible for creating a child. Disenfranchisement, disenfranchise, its derivatives, and all the different parts of speech will be used repeatedly through this. I want to begin with a definition of that, but a little bit later. But let's start. As you can see, if it's not clearly up there on the chalkboard, a Instagram and Twitter handle is posted. It'll also be in the description and details and links and stuff for this recording, this broadcast, this content, if you would. But I don't want to get too far on a tangent, but in that conversation with this attorney, I was told to chronologically list any documents or anything I might have that might be beneficial in the proceedings of a case coming up, I believe August the 30th, 2018. To hear several matters which have been filed to be heard dating back to 2015, 2014 almost. Over probably 7 to 8 documents, maybe 5 of my own, have been filed documenting several things, and the attorney who represents me, having access to all these things, is requested repeatedly that I provide him with the same information. It seems like a stall tactic of sorts, but I guess I'll detail that in some of the conversations and other correspondence that we've had in the past. But I do want to start and make sure I'm speaking in the proper contents of this disenfranchised thing. When I first heard the word disenfranchisement, it was in some type of a activist round table of sorts. Disenfranchise, deprive someone of the right to vote, deprive someone of a right or privilege, deprive someone of the rights and privileges of a free inhabitant of a borough, city, or a country. That is the archaic definition of the word disenfranchise. To deprive someone of the rights and privilege is, plural, deprive someone of the rights and privileges of a free inhabitant of a borough, city, or country. Apparently I'm a slave, and I've been so since I began fighting for the rights, the privilege to father my son Alexander. But I do want to take the moment to add this to the board, if we will, because I think that's an interesting precipice to have here. Disenfranchise. Franchise is almost like the word that makes me think of corporations and such, which the amount of land you seem to have and the amount of property you seem to be able to claim appears to be I've stood in hearings in courtrooms for several different types of proceedings, all of which the catalyst was fighting for the rights and privilege to father a child in the state of Florida, in the country of the United States of America. But the common question is asked: your education level, your profession, your trade, so to speak, what you do for money, as some judges will sarcastically state. And in these civil proceedings, and sometimes in these family law proceedings, where family financial affidavits are prerequisite and can be strategically used and requested by parties to stall a case or to continually deprive someone of rights while that person is fighting for said rights. But yeah, let me finish with this definition. Deprive. I like the archaic one. Yeah, those financial affidavits will speak to the amount of property you own. These things become business-like in language. It seems the economics of freedom. I kind of like that one. Slide that one to the side over here for later, maybe. But the economics of freedom. It's one of the factors that appear to definitely make me a slave. Speaking to Meek Mill's situation when he was younger, and even to what Tekashi 6ix9ine was mentioning, I think prevalently and adamantly in that Angie Martinez interview, the quote-unquote system. Which we'll get to, and I'm going to slide over to the document audit, what we're really here for in a minute. But the system apparently is something that third-party affiliates to the court system that like to seek financial gain and further inconvenience parties who are fighting for their rights. The system is something that they would like you to disregard and not look at, not blame, so to speak. It's an interesting strategy I found of third-party affiliates to the court systems who profit off of the disenfranchisement of certain people groups. Rights and privileges. Of a free inhabitant. Shout out to the 5 boroughs. Of a borough, city, or country. I want to keep this one to maybe 45 minutes if I can, just to test out the YouTube and what may be the Facebook sharing of this. It's kind of the meat of the tone I should say, of the following broadcast to come. And this document audit will hopefully help me kind of organize some things, as well as prepare for the literary world. Further details of the facts thereof that we're speaking of. Disenfranchised, because I've used that word so many times. I don't think. I suppose maybe I'm using the wrong word, because it apparently is not the right or privilege by mere existence or citizenship, I should say, to be a father in a country, city, or borough as a free inhabitant. Yeah, we'll go back to I'll access this a little bit later, my little Google and such, but I want to get into the first few document audits, which will include some photos as well. In the conversation I mentioned, the attorney who's representing me in the most recent family law case, I replied to him during conversation that I had over 2 or 3 boxes filled with legal documents and documents pertaining to correspondences and basically documents that will be helpful to this case. This attorney, I believe his name is Robert Elrod. Yeah. Robert, I'll have to look back into that first name. It'll come through one of these documents or through our research department when we go back to it. But Robert Elrod has been representing me for probably over a year now. Again, having access to the same actual court documents that I have, as well as what I've provided him prior to his representation of me. I'm kind of set aback and pretty much flabbergasted at why such a request would be made by an attorney representing me. So let's go to the picture that I don't want to say haunts me, but one that I see very often in passing. It was attached to a refrigerator at once, and it'll kind of give us a timeline, and I'll speak to I'll keep this up, and I'll speak to the timeline before I speak to the Schoolhouse Rocks kind of court system play-by-play. But let's see how much of a graphic I can get on this without the glare. This is 2014. One of the last times I saw my son. I coached his Pop Warner team in the school that he was, or at a park, I should say, down the street from a school where he attended. And for a little bit better resolution, I'll take a picture and post it on Instagram. That's _ JASONPERRY _ Yeah, I'll post. This will be a photo one. I wish it was magnetic to stick there. But 2014 will be an interesting mark for the timeline. So we'll say, where can we go with this 2014? We'll keep it down here, 'cause I may move some things around. 2014. Pop Warner, Orange Park Performing Arts Academy. OPPA, Pop Warner. OPPA. It's where he played football, and it's interesting. That'll be an interesting kind of rabbit hole to go down to, but I'll leave that there for now. Those are some good times. That was, again, pretty much the fall of 2014. I was employed. My only profession since my son's birth in 2008 has been an educator. It's been a school teacher. And we'll follow into some documents that'll kind of chronicle that journey as well. So we'll kind of maybe start this off 2008. All right. I began as a school teacher. The only job I've ever had. Salary is accessible publicly. You can Google in pretty much any county in any state by Google, by a map, and you can see what the salary of a certain level of teacher is. So my salary has been public knowledge, all income thereof. And that'll come forward throughout in some of the other documents that we're going to audit. But so far that's 6 years. So he was 2 in 2010. So at 6 years old, me and my son Alexander and I had an amazing relationship. I was very hesitant for him to play Pop Warner football, and I did not want him to. I wanted him to play basketball or continue playing soccer. And one of the deals or negotiations you would say that I made was that I coached his team. So I volunteered to coach his team so that I could pretty much watch over him. Because I played high school sports and I played middle school sports, and I kind of recall a lot of my relationships and interactions and experiences at that time. It could be a fearful time, meeting new people, but again, it's a part of your development as an individual, and everyone experiences it differently. However, we had a great time. As an educator, what I would do is I would get off of work, leave Duval County, and that's Orange Park, so we'll say I leave Duval County and travel all the way to Clay County to pick my son up from school, which at the time was Orange Park Performing Arts Academy. He's an artistic kid, loves to draw. His spatial awareness, his depth perception is amazing. The thing that I recall us doing the most is just reading words. I always like to challenge him to spell a word out, sound it out, try and pronounce it. And then in little examples here and there, hoping that he will remember for later times. Share with him the little grammatic nuances of the English language and whatnot, the King's English, as some would put it. And so he would love to read. And that's what kind of he would begin asking questions about things he read and things he saw. It was an amazing time. His development was amazing. I would often inquire with Orange Park Performing Arts Academy about his access and enrollment in the gifted program, which is something I was in Duval County as a child. But yeah, 6 years old. Those are some of the better times, so to speak. And let's see, we're almost at 20 minutes now. I'll probably kind of walk my way through this. I do want to get to the court demographic over there in a moment. Kind of break down some things that's probably common knowledge to quite a few, but for this context, I want to keep it here. And what I'll do is I'll begin kind of capturing photo-wise these moments on the board, and then kind of moving forward after that. So this will be, I kind of see how we can move on with this. It's almost, I'll probably just get one in for now. See how things go tomorrow, and then kind of go full on in the afternoons. But it was very interesting, and it's always very interesting to kind of self-monitor my heart rate and the anxiety level when it comes to even recalling a lot of this stuff, because attached to every one of these good moments I can speak of, coaching my son, playing football, and I remember the day that my son was born. I was at work as a teacher, and the guidance counselor secretary, or one of the deans, I'm sorry, in at Robert E. Lee, one of the particular deans in the particular areas. They're split up into 4 areas in certain regards, disciplines at the pre-collegiate level. She rushed in. I suppose I got the call from a family member, and I picked up picked up the schoolroom phone, dialed a little extension. I saw if anybody could cover for me. Didn't have any subs at the time, so I believe was that Miss Hawk? Yeah, Miss Hawk. Miss Hawk ran down the hall. That's when the old building before they renovated it. My classroom was right across the hall from the main office, a door down. And I jetted out, went to the hospital. But yeah, that was the first year that I had began teaching, my first job ever. Well, a professional job, I should say, after college, that is. But with every one of these good moments, there's some bad moments attached as well. And for the document audit, I didn't really know where to start, but I passed this document almost in passing every day. So I wanted to start with this. And this will take us right after 2015. And let's see what we can get here. Several courts have access to this document. At a notary public there. Now this will be accessible as well as the next document. We'll call it document 1, or yeah, because we have photo 1. This will be document 1 again. I'll pretty much try and get the best resolution image of these possible, and they'll be accessible through the handles at the top. There'll also be in the details of the. I believe I'll have this. See how long it'll stay up on YouTube. See if I can get a Facebook post in the little comments there. I'll have some details or descriptions as to where you can see better resolution images. But this is a 2015 document. So we'll say it was notarized on March 18th, 2015. So kind of our first date. We'll go here. 2018, or I'm sorry, March 18th, 2015. So this is 6 years old, maybe 7. Let's see what we can get out of this here. I do solemnly swear that the following is true to the best of my knowledge. On the day of questioning, I witnessed and observed Miss Lee trying to enter Mr. Perry's room in an argumentative state. She was yelling and demanding that she get all her child's things. She kept telling him to move out the way while she was attempting to collect said items. At no point in time did Mr. Perry put his hands on or threaten Miss Lee. He was calm and compliant as Miss Lee ranted and raved on. I ended up taking my nephew out the room and outside. In my opinion, Miss Lee really did not need to be in the room, let alone the house, if all she wanted was the child's belongings. Mr. Perry could have easily brought them out to her. There was no need for her hostile actions. Now, these hostile actions were to be testified to. And there's a witness there at the bottom. These hostile actions were to be testified to. And a Clay County judicial officer neglected to do so. We'll say 2015 witness. I'm gonna have a tree coming down that way in a moment, but this is when I was traumatized and attacked by the other party responsible for my son's existence. Alexander and I probably have spent his entire life together up until about 2015. At the time, I was a school teacher, and I would get out of school, I would get off work at 2 o'clock, or earlier sometimes. I also coached basketball at the time, and practice would start maybe around 3 o'clock or maybe within an hour time span. And this was even immediately when he was born. Several of the photos that you see on Instagram and on Twitter of his first day home, that was the apartment we stayed in. It was down the street from Lee. It was on oh golly, what was the name of that road? Actually, it'll come up in the document Audit as well. But yeah, that's what I meant to put. Document 1. The other party, I believe, was employed by the Department of Children and Family Services. She was a social worker, and I believe a child protective investigator, I believe is the title. And her work hours extended typically 2 to 3 hours past when childcare was available, or when they would close. From 2008 up until 2014, no matter what school Alexander attended, no matter what daycare he was enrolled in, I would pick my son up after school. When around 2009 or 2010, he was enrolled without my knowledge, and the enrolled without my knowledge will be a common term you'll hear. It's basically I find out about something, and I'm told to go here, and my son will be there. Kind of like a kidnap ransom note, but just consistently, and that's your existence. Go here, and your son will be there. You could pick, but anyway, around 2009 or 2010, and I'll have, hopefully through one of these later document audits, it'll surface up. He was enrolled in La Petite Academy, and I'll get a date for that, but I do want to put La Petite Academy here. And I believe this was in Clay County? Or was that considered St. Johns County? Yeah, that was Clay County. He was enrolled in school at La Petite Academy. We'll get a more accurate date for that a little bit later. And I would go pick him up, have to put this little 4-digit PIN thing in, and I was like a PIN number, whatever, to get in the door, and then pick him up from school, and he'd tell me about his colors, shapes, things he learned. That's pretty much what we did. He'd pick him up, he'd be in the back seat, we'd listen to music. He loved Lupe Fiasco. And he'd pretty much tell me about what he learned, and I'd ask him about it, give him little math tips, because pretty much I'd be coming off of the experience of teaching mathematics for the entire day, so I just kind of take whatever lesson I had taught that day and try and see if I could break it down to where a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old could understand it in conversations with my son, and he would get certain things, ask me questions about certain things, and I would try and take that and transfer it back into my lesson plans as a school teacher. And I was always in numbers. I was always concerned with numbers. So I was always asking what my percentages was as far as standardized testing, which was a big wave that had come through Florida at the time, or probably still is. But my students were always top one, top two. It was always 70% of my class was, well, my numbers per se was always 40%, 40 to 50% passing. And it was comparable always to second or third amongst the school teachers in my school, and then maybe seventh or eighth amongst the district, things of that nature. So I felt like my Alexander was a very uh, integral part in my profession. But not also at La Petite Academy, but also Ridgeview. When he began kindergarten, which he began pretty much after you're maybe 1 year old, 2 years old, and such. This is about 2010. He was at Ridgeview prior to beginning elementary school, which would be your first grade year or so. So that would have been 2014 when you're about 5 or 6. You attend there, but oh, had to make sure we're still going there. But in about 2010, 2011, let's see. Little pause. Yeah. Now, the circumstances that would have me travel would pretty much be based on the opposing party's whereabouts. My address has been the same since 2008, and pretty much the location of where Alexander spent the majority of his time. There's the residence in question on the day in question, and the witnesses' notarized testimony, as well as, and I'll kind of go through, it was a Springfield. It was in the Riverside area because that's where Robert E. Lee High School is. Downing Street. There it is. Downing Street. I want to be able to reference some of these later. Sometimes I have sporadic thoughts about these moments and I never really document them, so I want to have something to kind of piece together. Downing Street was my first residence, alongside with my childhood residence, our family residence on the north side. Downing Street and the Riverside, primary places where Alexander was raised. And I actually can throw another one, Lincoln Court. Lincoln Court, which is also Duval County. The hospital. This will not be on here, so we'll say date of birth, Shands. We'll throw Shands in there. This is also Duval County. So date of birth in Shands. The hospital right behind Shands is on Lincoln Court. Roosevelt Gardens. Roosevelt Gardens. So we'll slide it up here for space purposes. So we began in Duval County. Circumstances of the other party, removing my son, changing locations, things of that nature, occurred throughout 2010 through, 2008, I'm sorry. Pretty much throughout 2014, which another document audit will kind of resurface. It'll put some things in more context in a moment. Probably by the next video, because we're up on 33. Like I say, I'll probably taper this around 45. But I would travel from Robert E. Lee High School, my first professional location, to La Petite Academy, which was almost across that bridge when you go down Blanding Boulevard in Jacksonville. I think it's State Highway 21 or something like that, or County Highway 21 or whatever. and you cross over that long bridge, and you're almost going in the Green Coast Springs in Clay County. La Petite Academy was right past that Burger King. So I would drive all the way there, pick them up from school, from La Petite Academy, drive all the way back to Jacksonville, whether it was basketball practice or to my home. And the interesting thing was that the other party's place of employment was downtown, probably maybe 5 minutes from Shands. And if Alexander wasn't staying with me, if he was going to be sleeping at his mother's home, because I think she would at times take him there in the morning, because of course I couldn't take him in the morning and be back to work in time, which was pretty much very challenging, especially when we started getting into elementary school and things of that nature. She would leave from downtown and pass by Downing Street or wherever my residence was on the way to, at this point, God knows where, but my son would be at school or La Petite Academy or Ridgeview the next morning. Now the Little Paws moments are fairly pleasant. That's where I remember just again at about 2 or 3 years old, the daddy yelled out with the the childlike. He's a big, strong young boy. The last I saw him, but as a 3-4-year-old with the high octave, the feminine type tone, just running down that little trailway, because I would have to go through the Ridgeview High School checking in the front office. They had like I suppose a daycare type situation where some of the students were getting experience working in daycares, as well as having some of the teachers, or actually I suppose staff members, also man that daycare academy. So pretty much Alexander began attending Ridgeview High School as an elementary student, as a kindergartner, or about a first grader, so to speak. But yeah, the Little Paws situations were interesting. Let's see if we have any more documents. Gotta try and push through this. I have quite a few more things around that 2014 timeline, so I'll kind of be able to stretch that out. But this will be a picture, a photo 2. This will be image 2. He began writing in cursive about 2000. I may be able to say 16 or so. A little football action there. Artistic kid. Oh, here's one. Some old math problems. He'd randomly ask me to give him math problems just to try things out. It looks almost like fractions. No, he was just getting into double digits and stuff. There you go. If that, again, resolution to get better, I'll get some better resolutions coming a little bit later. I'll try and give his best English attempt here with the lowercase 2 dad from Alex. Of course, the from is capitalized because it's more important that it's coming from him than that it's going to me. I love you, Dad. You're the best ever. Yes, yes, yes. I know you love me too. I wish I could see you more than I do. I can't wait to see you. That's what's up. I recall this. See, it's a little bit of pleasantness that gets dropped in here and there. I believe this is the last birthday, and we'll kind of add this to the timeline so I can kind of gauge, because one of the questions I asked the attorney who's representing me, I asked him, said, "Do you know how long it's been since I've seen my son?" He didn't know. He said I would, and of course I had to tell him, yeah, I understand you have several cases and a lot of facts and figures and documents to go through, and but I asked if he could review it again for me, since he had been representing me Robert Elrod had been representing me for over a year or so now. But this is December 3rd, 2016. At the Autobahn. The fatherhood and sonhood has been resilient. Document 1, I suppose this will be document 2, maybe? Or this will be image. Yeah, this will be image 2. Or image 3. We'll keep these images as opposed to, no, these will be documents. So we'll go document 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I'll count that as an image. So 2 images in, 1, 2, 3 documents in. Right at 40 minutes. Yeah, the tangents in a way will be necessary. Because they, I don't want to say add a little bit of color, but they I suppose add a little bit of color to the story, to the, yeah, it has a little bit of color. So we'll, I'll capture this as a header for this document audit. Review some things for the next episode, so to speak. But this is challenging. Again, it's a lot of anxiety comes up. There's really no way to just speak bluntly and frankly about it, because doing so has fell on deaf ears since, I want to say, about 2015. That's when the first steps, quote unquote, were taken in a legal direction to protect my rights and privileges as a parent. Where several strategies and several parties have been accomplished to delaying, discouraging, and destroying that. Yeah, we'll document those who have a role, and in a way, I guess, so to speak, we'll, as they say, see how deep the rabbit hole goes. Is that a saying? We might be able to do that. Oh, I hope the anxiety does not become me. But yeah, document audit part 1. That's where we'll take it, and we'll just expose it in parts, break it down in parts. This is Mr. Perry's room. Part 2 will be available soon.